Hey everyone, Joe Carrell here, and I am super pumped to be with you guys today because I am getting ready to show you something sitting immediately to my left that I have been wanting for a very, very long time. And in fact, let's just go ahead and take a look at them. I have 500 series modules from Solid State Logic. All of these are dynamic modules. I have 6 channels of the traditional E series, and this would have been the most common console really in their entire product line. This same lineage of channel strip compressor lived on the 9000, for example, and it's still going strong today on things like the duality. And then over here in these last 2 patches, I have the original channel strip compressor. So the very first console that SSL ever made was a 4000B, and every channel on the console did indeed have dynamics, as we've came to know and love from SSL. In fact, I would say that's kind of defined generations of music, that particular sound. But that said, it was a precursor to the bus compressor. So in some ways, it's much more like the bus compressor that we know and love from SSL, more than it is the traditional E series dynamics. They each have their own unique identity sonically, but they also have a different feature set, as we will get into. But more importantly, why did I purchase these? Why do I have to have these in my rack, and why have I been wanting them so long? Well, it's pretty easy for me. Most of my life, my musical life, has been listening to music in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And if you listen to music recorded in that era, as SSL came on the scene in the late 70s and started dominating in the 80s, things kind of changed sonically in many ways for the better. I think we would go back and listen to music from different generations, and there's things we can say we love about all of it. And this is better from the 60s, and this is better from the 90s. I get it. But when it comes to pure sonics, there was something about the sound of the music that was made across so many genres: rock, pop, hip hop. I mean, you name it, country, and it was partly these channel strip compressors. Yes, the 4000 had a sound. As you drove into the stereo bus, that was part of the sound that became, the identifiable thing that we were all chasing. Also, the EQs. Of course, those EQs had a massive impact on the history of recorded music from the late 70s on. They're amazing, and they have a very unique thing. But another thing about when we start listening to music and trying to pick things apart, have you noticed how it all kind of fits together moving forward into the 80s, especially in the 80s? Whereas in a lot of music before, there was more dynamic range, for better or for worse, but something about the sound changed to where everything was kind of in its place and high fidelity sounding. I think you guys probably know what I'm talking about. A big part of that to me is the reason that every channel on those consoles had compression built into it. So whereas prior to that, we had, let's say a guy had an LA2A in a rack, 2 LA3As, and 2 1176s, or something of that nature. And it's like, okay, that's on the lead vocal, that's on the bass drum, that's on the bass guitar, that's on the snare drum, and now let's go. There's a lot of things that flew with less compression other than, what it was tracked with or whatever. That all of a sudden it became super easy to put compression and also noise gates and expanders on every single track in a mix. And that became kind of a standard. So many of our heroes that we grew up idolizing, like Chris Lord-Alge, Andy Wallace, especially Bob Clearmountain, and so many others, it became kind of a sound. The secret started, getting out that, hey, that compressor light is flickering on almost every channel on the console, whether it's being pounded or whether it's just lighting up here and there. That dynamic section of that console became a thing. It's part of recorded music history, and I still freaking love that sound. It's just as relevant to me now as it ever was. How do they sound? What's so special about them? Well, they're aggressive. They can literally be very, very transparent or very nasty, very raunchy, and in a bad mood, and anywhere in between. So what I have pulled up is I have a snare or a set of drums that's playing in a breakdown where the toms are kind of doing their thing, kick, snare, and I got some stereo rooms here, and we're going to check them out. They were recorded with a spaced pair of 87s, I believe, and they were going through an 1178, getting a little bit of compression. And here's that sound. can hear that mid forward thing of the 87. You can definitely hear that the 1178 is doing some thing. And you're like, okay, yeah, great. But how much greater could it be? So for example, it can be a lot greater. I'm going to start out here on the far right-hand side of this box. And this is the B series dynamic section. So this is back to the roots of the company. And what I'm going to do, I've already got something dialed up here. I'm going to have ratio set 4:1. Threshold is just maxed out. And I have the release time at 200 milliseconds. So pretty fast. Not, the fastest is DS, and we'll get into that. But I just want you to kind of hear the power of these guys. So again, here's unprocessed. And it does get louder because of the makeup gain. That's why the trim is engaged. Now check this out. You can't even compare that. I mean, that is aggressive. I mean, that is ready to cut. It's got a knife and it's going to pull it out and it'll cut you if you if you dare badmouth it. I mean, that's SSL to me. Just everything can be bigger and better than it was prior to going into the console, prior to going into this channel strip compressor. So let's talk a little bit about the B series first. So again, this is the original compressor, in some ways more like the bus compressor. We'll see 3 fixed ratios, 2, 4, and 10. And then you'll also see we have a DS setting here that is also 10:1, but it engages a high pass filter at 7K. So it's really meant to control sibilance, filter some nasty cymbals or hi-hat out of overheads, things like that. And then down here we have our threshold, as we'd expect. But this little button right here does engage a high pass filter. So we can unlike the original channel strips, we can make the bass drum or something like that not make the room or the overheads or various things pump, really hard. Now on the release times, we have an ultra fast DS, and that can be used independently from the DS ratio. So we can come up with quite a palette of sounds here. So we have 200 milliseconds, 400, we have 800, 1.6, and then auto. Any of you that know channel strip compression from SSL know that the auto feature is not part of that sound on all the later consoles, all the most popular consoles like 4000Es, Gs, 9000s. So that's how, one of the ways I compared it to the bus compressor is because we have that setting as an option to us, which I think is fantastic. And then of course we have the gate and expander is going to be the same as what we know and love from all the other channel strips. And we can, on the B series, if your 500 series rack supports linking, you can engage the link button as well. Now we go over here to the E series dynamics, and that's the one that a lot of us are going to know because, well, I mean, let's face it, Waves, Brainworks, Universal Audio, SSL themselves, there's a lot of software out there that emulates these because people are chasing that sound. So this is going to be the one you're more familiar with. But look, it does have a couple bells and whistles. You see that high pass emblem, or what looks like a high pass emblem, and you think, okay, that puts a high pass in the detection circuit. No, actually what that is a hard knee option. So at its core, this was a soft knee compressor. So we can engage that hard knee and it gets much more aggressive. So we have the variable ratio rather, as we know and love from these channel strips, which is different than the fixed options that we have over here. Then we also have the linear release option. That's new. Okay, so instead of the standard release that SSL has always had as part of these processors, we can engage that, and it's a continuously, as it returns to an uncompressed state, it's the same all the time. Part of the sound of so many compressors we love is the fact that it's really fast, about for the first half of the release, and then it slows down, or vice versa. And so that'll give us a different style of release, which is a fantastic option. Here we have a fast attack option, which, if you know anything about these channel strip compressors, 30 milliseconds is kind of the standard attack time. I understand they're program dependent, so it's in that ballpark, 30 milliseconds. But if we engage the fast attack button, it's 1 millisecond. So it can be really fast and aggressive and, almost a brick wall limiter in that case. Then we can engage them here. We have the same metering as we have on this one, where we can see compression on one side and gate and expansion on the other. And then we have the gate and expander just like we had over here. So it's the same. So anybody that's messed with the hardware or the software, you know what these are capable of, and you know how they operate. Okay, so we heard the drum rooms and just how just amazingly powerful and nasty and aggressive SSL can be if you want them to, if you push them that hard. And the B series, I think, really, really does that. So now the other thing that I have here is I have some tom-toms, and what I have is just a little EQ using SSL, because why not? This is an SSL program. But we don't have any compression. See the dynamics. In fact, we'll just turn them off, make sure that there's none. But I do have the threshold all the way down. So what we have is this thing you've all heard before. Okay, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, other than the fact that what did guys like Bob Clearmountain and Andy Wallace, what did they love about those channel strip compression circuits, and how did they use them? Just light up on basically every source. What was it making better, or what was it changing? I'm glad you asked. So let's let's put them on the tom-toms, and what I'll do is just right here, I'll do a hardware insert 5 and 6, where we have it right here. All right, so now these first two channels over here are inserted. So we're gonna dial something in. Do I already have something? Let's back it down to about 4 dB or so. Let's see. Let's keep the standard release, the standard attack, and let's take the release as fast as it'll go. Take the threshold down a little bit and dial something in. Here we go. Okay, great. Now, let's get it just a little heavier handed than that. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take them out and we'll hear them before and after. Okay, now let's engage them. So you'll notice right away the attack is more prominent. The 30 millisecond attack time is allowing the transient of the drum to pop through just a little bit, and then it clamps down. So we have a tight sustain from the compression, but we have a more important sounding attack as well. Like it's the best of both worlds. So you'll also notice it's a little louder, and that's not a trick. That's not a trick. Don't be, well, they just made it louder. These circuits make it louder. They have automatic makeup gain built in. But here's the thing to me about mixing on those kind of consoles and the sound of that. The sound of the makeup gain of these compression circuits is part of the sound. Don't be scared of it. It's not a trick. It's not, when you listen to something before and after, like, well, it's louder now, so surely it sounds better. The thing is, it really does sound better. So we're going through analog circuitry to make up that gain and push that volume, and it has a sound. So don't be scared of it. Enjoy it and use it to your advantage. Okay, so now we're going to do this. We're going to put the overheads in. We're going to put how about a couple of the snare drums, the live snare and the sample, and we're going to listen just for a second to this section, with and without. Okay, so some of the hits are getting lost on the floor tom for sure. And also, like this hit right here is jumping out in excess volume. So in addition to the louder impact that we're getting and the tightened up sustain and the sound of the makeup gain, I want you to hear when I engage it, how all of a sudden the dynamics are leveling out as well. It's just punchier. It's just better. It's more better. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, why don't we do this? Let's drag 7 and 8 over here to our overheads, and let's just turn the threshold down and let's dial something in. So let's 4 to 1 sounds good. And now this is gonna have a 30 millisecond attack. So let's just kind of listen to it. And we're going to go to a part where they're playing more of a normal expected thing. How about right here? Get it up here loud enough. Great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but let's see if we can make it better. Okay, and let me move this trim over here because, like I said, it does. The B really does a lot of makeup gain, so you may have to follow that in the box, or in hardware it's not a problem. But if you're mixing in the box with them, you may have to follow it with a trim plug-in or something like that, just for the makeup gain. Okay, before and after. With. Okay, it sounds better, right? It's angry. I love it. It's aggressive in it, but I can see I'm watching the LED meters inside of Pro Tools, and I can see that it's really putting a cap on it. Now that said, we're enhancing the attack a little bit because of the 30 millisecond attack time. So what if we do this? Let's wipe the slate clean here. Turn the threshold off. I'm going to take the ratio, set it to about 4:1. And I'm going to take and turn a fast attack on, because I love the sound of the traditional E series on a E series console or a 9000 console, duality, whatever. I like the fast attack time on overheads. There's just something about the super fast 1 millisecond that just really puts a lid on it and just kind of tickle the lights a little bit. Let's check. Let's do the release as fast as possible. And it's in. Yes. So let's try it out. And let's get rid of that trim. We don't want it. Okay, with and without. With. It just sounds great. You see, that's why our heroes flickered the lights on these things all over the console. And they're fantastic on drums. Just absolutely fantastic. Let's get it even a little bit more aggressive. Without. I mean, that sounds like plain white flour now compared to this after we've added all the ingredients, and it sounds like a brownie. How do you not love that? Now let's check out the hard knee. So it's going to get a lot more aggressive. So let's back down the threshold a little bit, because I've not really. These are new to me. I have not played with the hard knee option yet, because we didn't have that in the consoles that I was used to using. Ooh, I actually really like that. That is aggressive. Okay, no compression. Boring. Not boring. I mean, gosh, that's just amazing. I'm going to get used to these really, really fast. So that's a lot of fun. Okay, so let's go to something else. Let's go to the snare drum. So you're going to see up here at the top, I have a channel strip engaged, and it's just a little bit of EQ, but no compression, because we are going to go over here to bay number 1 and dial something in. So let's engage the compressor, and we're going to go to start with a ratio somewhere right in there, around 3:1, in that ballpark. Okay, now you'll hear that the attack, because of the 30 millisecond attack time, is being enhanced. Check it out. Now with compression. Okay, now this drum has a lot of sustain, so let's engage the gate here. Let's see if I can bring it over here to where I can see it a little bit better. Yeah, it's set to gate. We're gonna go to about there. Okay, so we just did a massive amount of cleanup on this snare drum. So it's more important sounding because of the attack. And now we're going to also filter out a lot of that lasting ringy sustain, as well as the hi-hat bleed. Check it out, before and after. That is why I ordered 8 of these things. I'm going to need some in my tracking room, and I'm going to need a couple channels here to print through, because, man, there's something about turning real knobs, right? Just what a load of fun. Okay, now I want to show you a couple tricks that some of our heroes came to know about these things, and how they would use them as part of their productions and part of their mixing. And one of those biggest tricks was low ratio compression. At least that's what I call it. So if you look over here in bays 3 and 4, you'll see that the ratio is turned off. However, the threshold is maxed out. So while we're not getting any compression yet, when we do dial in a little ratio, we're going to be getting a lot of compression, because it's going to be, it's not that we're going to be getting a lot of compression, it's that it's going to be affecting a whole lot of the signal. So instead of saying, hey, anything that passes this point, I'm going to affect you, no, we're saying anything that passes through here is going to be affected. And it's a sound, it's a vibe, it's a thing. So check this song out. And all I have going on the songs right now is this EQ. You'll see that the dynamics are disengaged. Okay, it's not a finished mix, but it will be, and I'll let you know when it's out. That said, it needs some compression, right? The acoustic guitar, there's 2 of them right here that we're kind of focusing on. I have the other one muted. It's this kind of a thing. It's a hard left and a hard right. And we really need that in this song. We need that energy out there, but we need it to be consistent, not overly spiky, all of that kind of thing. So let's hear it in the track one more time. You definitely hear that. A lot of the other stuff is getting lost. So this is where low ratio compression can come in handy. So what I'll do is I'm going to engage these, and I'm going to start turning the ratio knob until we're getting a much more desirable sound. It's just that easy. Here we go. So we're flickering at 6 dB, but it doesn't sound compressed, because it's just the thing. So check it out. It's just controlled just enough better that it's going to fit in the mix. Check it out. I hear all the notes. I hear every strike of the picks now. Okay, but this is going to be better. Remember, I'm going to keep saying this. Our heroes were known to tickle the lights on virtually every track on a mix. Now you're kind of seeing why that's a thing. So now let's go over to the piano. Now this is, as you can imagine, this is a very effective low ratio compression is a very effective trick on piano as well. And this is a worst case scenario piano, I will even add, because it's more he's Well, you'll hear it. It's not like the acoustic was playing the traditional strummy thing that we know and expect. So we have a really predictable attack and release type of thing going on. But on the piano, he's playing a lot more staccato. Okay, perfect. And you can really hear that let's take the inserts off of the acoustic guitar for right now, and you can really hear how dynamic it is. Some of those notes are really going to jump out in the mix. Dum dum ba bum. I mean, it's that kind of a thing. So let's see if this little ratio trick will take care of that for us. Let's go up here and let's insert our sends. So we're going to be on bass 3 and 4 here. Let's take this out and let's start over. Let's keep the release time somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, check it out. Okay, very cool. Now, what I would do on a song like this, and again, this is where the fast attack can be our friend. Check this out. Let's really focus in on the piano. Now we're stunning the growth a little bit. So let's take down the threshold just a little bit. Now let's hear that in the track. There we go. All of a sudden, our dynamics are parked right in place. Check it out. So if I'm going to push up the fader right there and brighten up the piano with a little bit of EQ and make that a moment, all of a sudden I can do that, and I'm not going to have to worry about ducking it on every other note because it's parked in a spot and it sounds great. But we're also getting the benefit of the sound of the compression. Sounds great. Check it out. I mean, that's very full, very very thick. Moves around a lot. Now it's going to be really tightened up. Now, if we want to get really heavy-handed, let's just for fun, just for grins and giggles, let's try the hard knee, and let's back the threshold up just a little bit and see what we need to do here. Man, that's really locking it into place. Check that out. Okay, now let's switch over to the B series on the piano because I have a feeling this is going to be capable of doing a sound that we're all familiar with. Because of its 30 millisecond attack time, let's set the ratio to about 4. And let's turn the release to, about 400 milliseconds or so. We'll see at this tempo. And I'm going to dial in some threshold, and let's see what kind of a sound we're getting on the piano here. Okay, so you hear that real attacky thing that it's doing to the piano. So when they strike, it's really making the attack very prominent. Check it out in the mix. So it's doing a job of making the track set in the mix, but more importantly than that, did you hear? It's kind of doing that Elton John thing. You know that piano sound, that real hard sound, like the hammers are really striking the strings. That's a very recognizable sound to a lot of us in a lot of different music, and this is capable of doing that for sure. Check it out before and after. With. Absolutely a thing. Now, another trick that we used to do, and still do, I mean, we can do this in software too, because remember our friends at SSL, Plugin Alliance with Brainworks, Universal Audio, Waves, a lot of people have modeled these. Now, only SSL has a software version of the B, but almost everybody, in the game has an E now. So if hardware really isn't your thing, those bundles are there, and you can do this kind of thing with tools that's in those bundles if you don't already have those tools. That said, here's another real common thing, and that's electric guitars. So we would EQ. So what I've got is I've got some EQ pulled up here with SSL, because why not? And but no dynamics. And you'll hear the electrics here. They're moving around a little freely. And again, remember how how many times have I said it? Our heroes were known to flicker the lights on virtually everything. And I'm going to show you why. Here's a great trick on acoustic guitar and electric guitar both. Because sometimes on acoustic guitar, we'll use a box like a diode bridge, like a Neve or something like that, for the tone of that circuit. But it doesn't necessarily get rid of all the spikes, so we can follow it with an E series on fast and just be tickling it here and there, and we also get the sound of that unit that way. This guitar on the left, you hear it's a little spiky. We need that frequency, we need the angst of it, we need that to help it cut through the mix, but we also need to have a lid on it in some way. So let's try this. Here we go. So I'm going to leave it at 100 millisecond attack because, or I'm sorry, 100 millisecond release, and that way it's getting off and leaving the body of the guitar, and it's only really, when he's doing it, now, it's only grabbing those now-nows and not so much the chicka, okay? Check it out. Okay, before and after. It sounds great, but it doesn't sound like a record yet. It's kind of separated from the track. We need that frequency to bite through to give the power to the mix, but not in the way that it is. So in comes this guy. Puts a lid on it. One more time, before and after. Just a little floppy, just a little loose. And now that does have the fast attack setting. That's the 1 millisecond, which is what you want in something like that. You're just wanting to put a lid on it. So it goes back to our heroes. The lights flickering all over the console. So even if we did have an outboard compressor, let's say we had an 1176 or an LA3A on the guitar, but we still wanted a little bit of a lid, in steps the console channel strip and just kind of lightly feather it on fast attack just to stamp it down just a little bit. Another favorite for me on these guys is background vocals. So and this goes back to the console days. Maybe we had 10, maybe we had 30 tracks of background vocals, so it'd be summing those into Pro Tools, returning them to 2 faders on the console, fast attack compressor, and ride that into there so it's setting a lid on it. So many tricks, so many tips, so many ways to use these guys, because as we've heard, they can be just lightly feathering something to set it in a mix, or they can be just nasty and mean and wear leather jackets with greasy hair. They can do all of that thing. All right, guys, I better just stop, because I could play samples and examples through these things all day. I freaking love them. Great gear gets me excited, and I just don't want to stop touching the knobs. And if you're the same way, and you would think about purchasing something like this, check out our friends at Sweetwater, because they are sponsoring this video. That's right. So let's give them a little shout out and a little love. And not only that, if by clicking below, if you purchase any gear, it also supports my channel. So I can keep bringing you content of not only showing you cool pieces of hardware, but trying to also educate in how to use it and teach you some of the tips and tricks that I know and have learned from people that helped me along the way. All that to say, gosh, it's so much fun to just do this kind of stuff and see this stuff in action. And I can't wait to just take a couple of these channels down to the tracking room so I can get that sound on overheads and rooms on the day of the recording. It's going to be a blast. Guys, thanks for watching, and happy mixing.